I was thinking perhaps if I would sit here, there will be less rows, so it will be easier perhaps. Tomorrow, it's never too late. Do you have any questions?
Hi, Francis. I just had a quick question about the yoga. So, any of the contractions that we have...
Sorry, it's a little too loud. Try again.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. So, do the contractions just represent a lack of surrender to consciousness? I mean, I know that's kind of a simple question, but it just made sense to me that any resistance is just contraction in the body is just a resistance to total surrender.
I mean, I call those contractions. It's true if they affect muscles, but other organs may be also affected at the cellular.
Yeah.
You're quiet.
Yes, I'm on. Yes. Not loud enough. Okay. Okay. One, two, three. But then when you speak in the mic, take it a little further away. It's impossible to balance it because we would have to balance it for each person because some speak loud, some speak not, some speak far away, so be like a crooner, you know. Measure the distance. Yeah. So these residues in the body that may be in the form of contractions are the way the sense of separation perpetuates itself. It creates a kind of positive, quasi-permanent web of sensations here that account for the here-ness of consciousness, the seeming here-ness of consciousness, the localization, the seeming localization. In fact, the presence of this sense of me here in the body, of me being here, remains in the twilight, so to speak. It is there, but not fully seen, like, to use a metaphor, like something that we see in your peripheral vision. You don't see it clearly, you know it's there, you don't know really what it is, perhaps, you see. So it's the same. So all these exercises are means, if you will, to get rid of these residues. To be proactive in this process of stabilization. Now I feel I'm too loud, no? No? Because there is a little bit of, okay. Yeah. One, two, three, it's better now, yeah. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't move any longer. Promise. Yes. But you know, all the questions that we ask here is just to satisfy the mind. What is important is to do them the best you can and to see then what impact they have. There is no need to really it's not necessary, let's put it this way, to understand rationally why we do that. For that to work, it's not absolutely necessary to understand why we do it. But in order to satisfy the inquiring mind, yes, then we can understand why we do it. What's the general idea behind those exercises is the general purpose of the yoga. As you can see, this yoga is totally independent of the fitness of the body. You can do it from the chair. You can do it. It's that which is essential in the yoga is not related to the age, to the fitness of the body.
Thank you.
Over here. Hi. Okay. So over the past few months, it's become really more and more clear that nothing I am perceiving could possibly be separate from me. It's in my field. However, it still seems that my field is limited in some way, like I'm only perceiving a fraction of the totality. And it feels sort of like a roadblock, like I'm missing something.
Yeah. Through this specific perceiving apparatus, through which you perceive this human body being localized somewhere in space and having access to its surroundings through the very narrow windows of the senses, of course, what you have access to is limited. But the real question is consciousness limited to a specific body-mind? You know, we have to understand that there is only one reality, right? The stars, the galaxies, the plants, the mountain, the bodies and the human bodies are all part of this one reality, in constant interaction with itself. Our perceiving through a specific human body-mind is just a very tiny fraction of the total amount of what is going on, right? If you identify with the instruments through which perceiving takes place, then of course. But that is based on a false assumption, which is the following. It assumes that the fact that that which we perceive is limited implies that that which perceives The consciousness is limited. For instance, that which you perceive through your TV set is limited. But it isn't the fact that what is perceived through the TV set, for instance, is limited by the frame of the image, doesn't imply that you are limited in what you see by the frame. Because you can look at your Coke, at your potato chips, right, and other people. And also you can hear with your ears and you can smell. So you have other ways of, other channels through which you can perceive other than the TV set. But, so the assumption according to which the fact that that which you perceive through the TV is limited implies that that limits your field of perception is not true, right? In the same way, in this analogy, take the human body-mind as a limited channel, which is not challenged here, of course. As a channel, the human body-mind is limited. It's a very narrow channel. It doesn't imply that the reality that perceives, because it is obvious that perceiving is real. It doesn't imply that the reality that perceives, using this body-mind as an instrument of perception, is limited. You see, that's a false assumption we make. And the fact that that which is perceived is limited, it doesn't imply that the perceiving reality is limited.
So that goes back to what you were telling me the other day, where we can't know the limitlessness. We can only be uncertain about the limit, like whether it's universal or unlimited. There's only an uncertainty and like a questioning. You can't actually know.
Yes, but yes, in a sense, yes, in a sense we can. And we can in the following sense. Let's say in ignorance, we believe that we have a strong body of evidence that consciousness is limited, right? And then on the path, we are asked to investigate this alleged body of evidence only to discover that it doesn't have four legs to stand on, right? So then that leads us to a position of not knowing. In other words, I truly don't know. I have no clue whether consciousness is limited or not. And then the second, if you will, step, which can be started earlier on, actually, but for the sake of clarity, I make these two steps like a 1-2, but in fact they can be started concomitantly. But the second step is to conduct experiments by changing the way we react when we face situations in life. Because in the past we have always interacted with those situations based on the assumption that we are a limited consciousness. So there are situations in which whatever we would do will be the same no matter what. So these are not, these are whatever we would do in this case would be inconclusive. But there are other situations in which if consciousness were universal instead of limited, we would take a different path, right? So then the experiment is that now we take the different path for the sake of doing this experiment. And by doing that, we ask a question from the totality, from the universe. And then we get an answer. I cannot tell you, we cannot define ahead of time what the answer is going to be. But the answer is going to be generally twofold. There is going to be an inner response, which is an increase in peace and happiness and harmony. And there is also a universal response, which is also serendipitous, an increase in harmony. So then, this experiment we have conduct, then we cash it in, so to speak, in our evidence bag. You see, so it becomes a first element of evidence, okay? And we store it in the evidence bag. And then we multiply, we conduct more and more and more experiments. So we were at a point where we had discovered that we have zero evidence. But now we begin to accumulate positive evidence in favor of the universal consciousness hypothesis, if you will, you see. And there is a moment when this evidence becomes preponderant, if you will, becomes sufficient and becomes as bulky, if you will, as the pseudo-evidence we believed to have before in favor of the opposite thesis. Are you following me? Or yeah. I'm too academic. Yeah, no? So then this type of evidence that we accumulate can never lead to 100% certainty. Any more that we can be 100% certain that the sun is going to rise tomorrow morning. But nevertheless, we have a high level of relative certainty that it will. Right? So in the same way, we can achieve a very high level of certainty in the mind that consciousness is universal. In addition to that, the absolute certainty can be always verified in the moment itself. Because when we conduct an experiment, then it is the absolute certainty that speaks. You see what I mean? And in a sense, our life becomes a constant verification of the universal consciousness hypothesis. We become like a mad scientist who, although he has conducted this experiment many, many times, enjoys it so much that he wants to conduct it all of the time because he derives a lot of fun and pleasure in doing so. So we become the mad scientist. But the mind can never be absolutely certain because the mind always, for its certainty, refers to the past. You see, and we can never be certain of the past.
During today's yoga, the experience of transparency clarified a misunderstanding I want to run by you that I've had for years, since even Jean Klein would talk about the energy body. And I think I conceptualized that like an aura, like my personal. And today it became clear that just like consciousness is universal, it's not my energy body, it's a universal energy body.
That's true, yes. And yes. Now, you know, when we use the word energy body, often people, the interpretation we have is a little spooky and new agey. You see, it's like oh, this, you know, this guy can see the energy body. He can see the auras. He can cleanse the energy body. He can cleanse the aura, with a sponge or with an energy sponge. And then he can rinse the sponge in an energy. So, but in fact, the definition of the body of energy is quite simple. It is what we call bodily sensations. That's all. And what is interesting is this, is that we have identified the bodily sensations with the physical body. In other words, with the body which is here, which has a very well-defined shape, like we see in the mirror or like we see on a picture. And whereas the body of energy as an experience, because we talk here only about experience, is quite different. It's what we have if we close our eyes and we observe the sensations, right? That's the energy body. And then it is interesting to observe that in fact this energy body is dissociated from the image. I'm not saying there are no connections, but it is dissociated, and it is very interesting to work proactively to train, in a sense, this dissociation, which we did during the first session. You remember when we were moving the tactile hand? That was an exercise in dissociation. Why do we do that? And because another definition that Jean Klein used of the yoga when they had a conversation with him, and he said, it's because what we do, we describe perceptions that we have when the body is of energy, the energy body is liberated. And by describing it, the one who listens can match this description with his experience, and in turn, this discrimination, this separation can happen knowingly. Knowingly, because the energy bodies has always been separate, of course, but knowingly. He would give examples such as if we look at a statue, at a sculpture, we don't look at it with the eyes only, but with our hands. Although the sculpture may be far away, we caress it, for instance, we feel the texture and the temperature of the bronze or of the marble, or we feel the coarseness of the stone in a different part. Or even if it's a big sculpture, we enter into it, like there is a childlike playfulness, in enjoying a work of art. Same thing in architecture, when we are in a room, with our tactile body, we don't stay here. We walk in the room. We walk in the room. That's why, for instance, if we enter a room which is completely encumbered with furniture, we feel bad. Because, why? Because with our tactile body, we try to find our way through the room, and we bump our knees everywhere, So the same thing, for instance, when you look at a figurative painting in the classical age of painting, for instance, Renaissance painting, 16th, 17th century painting. When you have a painting of an interior scene, you will observe that there is always a window or a door through which we can escape. Otherwise, it's oppressing. So, there are paintings that don't work. They are the ones that are oppressing. Another painting that doesn't work also is if the window through which you can escape is too big, because then you escape too early, you don't enjoy. So the way to enjoy the painting is to enter, right? Explore everything and then go. You see? So in other words, even in the case of two-dimensional figurative art, we use also our tactile body to enjoy it. I hope I am clear with me, but anyway.
You ended your meditation today, I think it was near the end, by saying, be one with the moment.
Whatever that means.
Yeah. Well, for me, I mean, it's, I must have heard you saying this before, but this time it was, speaking out the obvious, kind of like, because what else can you be? So it was clear to me that I'm already the moment. And since that was clear, and also during the meditation, it was so easy to let all the sensations just be there, and because they're just there, no resistance. Now here's my question. When the fear comes up, the fear of death, it's, for example, it's not like a pain. Bodily pain can be very nagging, but the fear itself does not even have the quality of like a strong toothache, but it is so, it makes everything is like screaming, it's so strange to be the moment. I am that in that moment, but everything seems unbearable, and I'm asking this also because when I entered the plane, again, although I thought, oh, this is gone now, you don't feel the fear of death. When the plane was getting into turbulence, I mean, it was again this feeling, I am sitting here, I'm in this plane, and I don't want to die. And of course, the only thing that I knew, I was listening to probably Jean Klein or you just to calm me down, but of course I knew from listening to you that it was, those moments are also grace, and that those are the moments where we can let the fear come up.
Yeah, but it's normal for the body, when the body is placed in unusual conditions, that it gets tense, it reacts, and fears comes up. You are like the cat in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are the guy in the plane. Let me tell you something. I was trained as a pilot. Before that, I didn't fly much, and I was quite afraid of the turbulences. And then in my training, we were flying in small planes, and small planes, and then at the end you get used to it, and it's like the plane is taking you. You dance with the plane. You see, I guess sailors have the same when the sea gets a little agitated, that they get used to it. I guess in the beginning, aviators, they don't like be on ships. So for me, I would be like the cat in the car. It would be Francis on a ship. So the point is, it's a natural thing. Don't try to. It's natural to be afraid when the body is placed in unusual circumstances. Natural. It's a natural defense.
Yes, but from what you explained, I guess once you get used to it by being a pilot, you get used to it. And I see other people in the plane enjoying it like a roller coaster ride. And for me, it was clearly linked to the fear of death.
Perhaps their parents were taking them to the roller coaster, on a regular basis.
Yeah, mine certainly didn't. But okay, then let me try to come to the question from a different angle, because it might well be that it was just that kind of situation. But for example, thinking about illnesses too much, like now I was thinking, oh, this could be something. I mean, sooner or later, as you once said, you have to swim through the river. You gave that image of that.
But you swim through the river when you reach the bank.
What? Sorry?
It's not in good taste to try to swim before you reach the bank.
Okay, that means I'm on my way to the bank.
We all are.
Yeah. The banks of the river, you mean, yeah. Yeah, but you said that the teacher is basically saying, come on, swim. You have to go through it.
That's a different swim I am talking about.
Yeah, that's the swim I'm talking about. Do you remember that image that you gave?
There is no point in anticipating what may happen. That is, well, you cross this bridge when you come to it. And things that we are afraid of, when they happen, they are never as terrible as we believe them to be. And events that we were anticipating to be very nice are never as nice as we anticipated them to be. So, for instance, weddings.
They're never as bad as expected, you mean? I think I didn't really get your answer, or maybe my question was not good enough.
No, but it's normal for the body to be afraid in frightening circumstances. It's normal. But what happens is that once you have understood your eternity, the disappearance of the body is not the ultimate evil. It becomes a relative thing. So you have this background of peace and of ultimate safety. You see, people were asking Ramana Maharshi once said he was dying, and he said, you are sad because you think Ramana is leaving, but I know that I'm not moving. I'm not leaving where I am. You cannot leave your own presence. And that's the ultimate safety, that you cannot leave your own presence. So the existential fear, this extreme fear, is tied to the belief that we can leave our own presence and that it will be a very terrible experience. Whereas in fact, our own presence is all we need. It's completely perfect. And it will always be Everything else is just like fireworks. So the fearlessness that is a result of the liberation is an absolute fearlessness. It's not I mean, you can still be afraid that your body is going to have an accident, just as you can be afraid that you're going to run out of gas in your car, or that your dryer is going to break. It is this identification with the dryer that is the problem.
Yeah, I guess there seems to be. It's also the world, the story, that is linked to the body. You know, this particular story. You feel like only with this car you can go through those streets that you know. You see that.
Habits,
yeah, sure.
But this and that is based upon this belief that repetition makes us happy. And in fact, it's just the opposite. Repetitions makes us dull and bored. But we have lost this childlike interest for the new, you know,
If I may, let me give you an example, because maybe I'm a little bit stuck here. For example, if I go to a classical concert, I know, of course, that the next, let's say, Fifth Symphony of Beethoven will be a new experience because it's played by a different orchestra, different conductor. I'm new in that situation, this circle. It's new. But still, I love to go there, and I choose the Fifth Symphony over, let's say, whatever Bernstein, Tchaikovsky you said. Yeah, or even worse. I mean, no, Tchaikovsky, I think I like him to a certain degree, but still I would choose the Beethoven over that. So there's a kind of repetition there. I can see it, because like the feeling, will I never hear the Beethoven symphony with whatever orchestra again? So I go because I enjoy it so much. And I'm happy that this car is still taking me there.
But what is important is not the car, it's the there. Because if you had the car without the there, you would have no use for the car. But if you had the there without the car, you couldn't care less about the car.
The there.
The party.
The party. Without the fireworks.
Without the taxi that takes you to the party. What do you prefer? To be in the taxi not being at the party, or being at the party without the taxi?
I want to be at the party, but with the right music. See? Without the music, there's no party.
No, that's not true.
It's not true?
No. The music in this case is a vehicle that takes you to the party. But there are many, many types of Uber vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah, attachment to objects. And attachment to the body, identification with the body. That's the thing that we have to to understand and to liberate ourselves from. And when I say attachment to the body, I can be attached to my car. You know, you like your car as long as the car is functional and nice, but if I am in France and over the weekend the car burns on the street, so be it, you see. I'm not attached to it in that sense. It's not an absolute attachment. You know, I was playing the flute. At some point I couldn't play it any longer. But that didn't... I couldn't say that I was happy that I wasn't able to play the flute. But that didn't make me miserable. I cannot play tennis the way I was when I was 20. Just a little bit slower. Not much, but... I mean, if we start complaining for everything we have lost, I mean, you become worse than the old ladies at the restaurant.
No.
Just to come back to the question of the subtle body. I find your definition of the subtle body quite elegant and simple. But there's this notion about the koshas, you know, the Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya, Anandamaya kosha and all that. And so there's also a classification of subtle bodies in a sense. And as I understand, this represents kind of levels of identification, or like subtle identifications with the body. Would you say that's a correct way of seeing it?
Yes. All the classifications, they were mostly ways to memorize and systematize the teachings. You know, the Four Noble Truths, the koshas, of Buddhism, the koshas of the yogic tradition. The koshas are layers that hide the truth, right? That hide their veils. And we should open the windows here. Make sure the door is closed to the kitchen, the window is open.
Oh yeah.
unless the house is on fire. We have insurance.